Cowboys head to Indy this week. They try to lock up the NFC East and possibly a top 3 playoff seed. What do you think, Coach? Do you think they can do it? Do you think they've got the momentum going in their favor right now?
The thing that they have the momentum definitely going in their favor, and they've obviously been able to incorporate Amari Cooper and create a weapon there, and they do a great job in terms of points per game. Don't love the giveaway takeaways in the third down defensively. I think those are areas that they need to focus on. The concern that I have is they put so much pressure on themselves over the course of these last 4 or 5 weeks. This is like a Super Bowl. Play this play like a Super Bowl. That can get to be exhausting. And they've got 3 games left. Then you go into the playoffs, and when you're emotionally getting up to that level every single week, and you'd love to say in pro sports that's what you should always get, but it's not. It's not realistic. And so to go into the playoffs after having sort of an exhausting run, I don't know if that's going to be the best way to enter.
Is that one of the things that was, though, not looking forward, just looking at what just happened, most impressive to you about Sunday, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, that, as you were talking about earlier, see, after talking about that Saints game, every play is like the Super Bowl. We're going to choke them out. That the defense came out, and at least for the first 3 quarters of that game, played at the same level they had played against the Saints, if not better. Like, maybe it was the youth of the defense that led to it, I'm not sure, but the defense didn't have a letdown at all. And you can't really call the offense had a letdown because the offense played at the level it had been playing at, which was mediocre to poor until that fourth quarter explosion.
Yeah, but then that's a great point. Until that fourth quarter explosion, so you go through those 3 quarters and suddenly you run out of gas and it becomes an overtime type situation, and you just worry, is this the same pattern in this last quarter of the season, and are they going to be able to go into the playoffs and keep that intensity level? And as Chris knows, once you enter the playoffs, the intensity level of those games is totally different than what you're experiencing now.
Yeah, we talk about the 3 speeds in the NFL from the preseason to the regular season. There's a couple notches up that the veteran players can go to, and when you go to the postseason, oh my God, it's a couple notches after that. What Coach is saying is, will they have the sustainable power to be able to go 7 straight weeks? Because if you look at what we're looking at here, the last 3 or 4 weeks,
really,
right?
The last 5. They've won 5 in a row. So we're talking about maybe 9 straight.
And they were in a must-win situation. But I'm going to say from Thanksgiving.
Okay, sure.
From Thanksgiving, when they had to play that game and then come back 7 days later with the the best win in the NFL this year, where they slowed down the Saints, I was really worried about, because Coach has taught me this. Yeah, how do you deal with success? Younger players, they all deal with it different. So seeing how they responded, and that's what you were talking about, I thought those were very, very credible things. But now I look at matchups. Like, who would they have to play? Because there's going to be teams that go on runs and get into the playoffs. But if you don't have good matchups, so they'll be on a run, and I believe their matchups are very, very good. I believe they can go anywhere and take that defense and that running game. And I just believe their passing game is going to grow. After talking to one of your friends, Sanjay Lau, and seeing what they can do, because they're right now, the last 3 games, what they're going to concentrate on from a passing game, they're going to try to throw the ball deep down the field. They're going to try to be more accurate. They're going to try to make more explosive plays. They're going to try to get the ball to the post and try to get the ball deep outside, which we saw them do last week. And he believes that they can be far more efficient than they've been in Dallas this season. So if we say, okay, what if that happens? Imagine that offense opening up with that defense. Got to take away some of those turnovers. But that's what I'm looking at for the Cowboys. So I can understand why Jerry would have a sense of enthusiasm over the team he's put on the field.
But also, there's no other team in the NFL that has learned more from their shortcomings than this Dallas team. They didn't run the ball enough in the beginning. Now they're running it. They didn't throw the ball downfield. Now they're throwing it downfield. Their defense wasn't as short up. Now it completely is. I know you talk about, can they be too hyped up or have expended too much energy? But if there's a team that has used momentum to their favor better than any other team, I think Jerry Jones was right. I mean, they are really coming together at the right time.
But there's an element of, much like we see, to cross-sport analogy, a team that falls down 20 in the first half of an NBA game and then plays great to get back in it, that by the time they're back in it, they are spent. And the other team makes one more push and the game's over. Like, that's the concern that you guys are talking about, is that whether or not the Cowboys had to do all these things really well and have some good fortune against Philly and have some good fortune with Washington's injuries just to be in this position. But the whole point of getting in this position is to get into the playoffs. And if once the playoffs come around, if they will have anything.
Yeah, I think we miscalculated the Dallas team. We didn't realize that they're going to change 7 coaches. And they've also changed their offensive line coach since the beginning. So, Coach, since spring, they've changed 8 coaches. All right? We miscalculated. We didn't read into it. We didn't know about, we're talking about the chemistry on the field, the chemistry of the coaching staff. Guys have egos. Coaches have egos also. So how I'm going to develop the talent, and the talent in the wide receiving room was not good. That's why they went out and traded for Amari Cooper. Michael Gallup now is a second-round pick, starting to emerge now as a consistent threat offensively now as a starter. So we miscalculated. That don't mean it's Dallas's fault. We miscalculated because we did not know the effect, and I hadn't heard anybody talk about it. I hadn't heard one person on television, radio mention Dallas was going to have 7 coaches. And, Coach, I don't even know if you've ever been a part of a staff that made that type of adjustment. But what type of things in Dallas would the coaching staff in that adjustment that we missed on that you'd have to consider for this team?
Well, as we talked about early in the season, you go through this process of thinking you're something at the start of the season, and then the good teams realize who they need to be. So there's who you want to be, who you need to be. But when you have a new coaching staff, you've got to learn about the players, and they've got to learn about you. And there needs to be an element of trust that's developed between the staff, between the players, between the new players and each other. And it takes a while to get to that level of trust. And they went through a lot of adversity early in the season, a lot of expectations early in the season. So now they're getting to that point where they understand who they need to be, and we're seeing that. And it seems like that trust is building. So that's very encouraging. I'm concerned that when you push and push and push, and then suddenly you've got to go into the playoffs where the intensity level increases that much more, are you going to have anything left to push forward with?
And that, in one regard, and I know this is more small picture than you're talking about, big picture wise, this early in the year, what was our big knock on Dallas in addition to lack of passing game? Why aren't they using Zeke more? Why aren't they using Zeke more? Well, now, during this 5-game winning streak, he's got 37 more touches than any player in the league. They are using him as much as you possibly could. If they were using him at that level the whole season, then maybe your best player, because he is their best player, wouldn't have as much left in the postseason. I know he's young, and I know he's a great player, but eventually guys can hit a wall. He is ramping up at the right time of the year. But the Cowboys' path, as C was mentioning, the reason Cowboy fans, despite everything we've said here, should be optimistic is they are going to be at home in the first round, almost assuredly against Seattle. If they win that game, they are either going to New Orleans, they know they can beat New Orleans, or to the Rams. I think they are looking at the Rams and say, we can have a similar script we had against New Orleans. Now, those games will be on the road, be tough, but they can credibly believe, because of that New Orleans game, our defense can keep us in any game no matter who we're playing.
What we're going to see coming down the stretch, because all the players are tired. Every player's tired. But the less talented players, you know what? They're less talented and they're tired. What we're going to see coming down the stretch is the best players. That's what I used to tell my teammates. Oh, everybody's tired. But the best players will be better. Why? Because we were better when we were fresh. All right? Dallas, what I like is they don't have a bunch of guys having career years. They don't have this huge turnover margin. They haven't scored all these
Not a bunch of outlier stuff.
Imagine if that stuff just happens in the playoffs with a young team. A young team can catch fire. In this NFL, you get into the tournament, you got a chance to be able to get to the Super Bowl.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.